But still the question, how on earth does Rob finish the match? What is the moment? How does he get him to the pad? I think Zurab's going to wipe him 3-0 and he's going to giggle. At some point in the match, we'll see a Zurab giggle. Who are we talking about today?
Who are we talking about today? Oh, your favourite person on the planet.
Oh,
That's who we're talking about.
We're kicking off with my favourite person.
Yeah, we're kicking off with your favourite person.
You must be talking about Rob Vigeat Jr.?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's only one. There's only one.
All right, so Rob Vigeat Jr., Zurab Tavberidze, USA v Georgia, the man out of retirement, whatever you want to call him. He is. I've gone to you, wrong person. Gone to me. Got to get warmed up. But anyway, Rob Vigeat's back. So far, it looks like he's going to turn up. Do you think he will?
That's a good question. Look. I like giving people the benefit of the doubt. He'll show up to this one, surely.
He's pulled out of a few. He's pulled out of an East vs West before. He's pulled out of King of the Tables before. He's pulled out of private matches. He's pulled out of about 4 in a row, I believe.
He's really good at dodging matches. But hey,
let's assume he turns up.
Let's assume he turns up. It's a lot more fun that way. It's a lot more fun to assume he turns up. You know?
Okay. So Zurab Tavberidze is a much more known entity in the East vs West realm. Obvious. He's been there a while. His best performance has got to be against John, where he lost 3-2. He had a war with Ron Barth. He beat me convincingly. He did lose to Chance Shaw, but you have to say he's a known entity relative to Rob.
Yeah. Rob's kind of in an unknown right now. His last outing was his last outing at Sasha
Andreev, yeah.
Yeah,
and he lost bad.
So
that's a good question. Is Zurab better than Sasha?
Oh, that is a good question. They're both very, very similar.
I think that
very similar.
Sasha potentially is. Oh, I keep thinking about you. I think Sasha is.
I thought you were a pro, Ryan. I thought you were good at this. Isn't this your job?
Oh, look how slow I am. I think Sasha is potentially a slight caliber above relative to the weight categories than Zurab. Obviously, he's won plenty of world titles, so that speaks for itself. But with the weight difference, if we're talking about difficulty for any given opponent, I suspect they're pretty similar level.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And Sasha seems to actually have a little bit more of a well-rounded threat. We saw him by the end of his match with Rob top rolling. But that knuckles up back pressure threat just seems to be slightly more relevant with Sasha than Zurab. But yeah, very similar pullers. Very similar.
And so Rob last time basically he looked okay outside of straps, which is something we'd expect. But once he gets tied to a strap and the side pressure comes on, he looks like he's floundering, doesn't he?
As soon as he can't get that pronation and control away, as soon as, Sasha was able to contain that and get connection to it in the strap, and as soon as he had connection to that pronator, was able to control it, it looked like the lights were out for Rob. He had nothing.
Okay, so Rob against Zurab, what on earth does he actually need to do in this match to avoid that happening again?
He needs to watch John v Zurab on repeat, right? John did a brilliant job of taking control of Zurab, and he did it in a very similar fashion to what Rob can somewhat do with his set of strengths. Very similar in terms of that wrist flexion dominance and good pronation from cut position. So I'd like to see Rob being brave and actually coming forward and controlling the inside lane out of straps.
I want to ask you the question, how does Rob finish the match? If you see victory for Rob, you just said using a fundamental shape, back pressure, pronation, which I agree he has all of those assets in spades, but I struggle to see how he finishes, given Zurab has, much like Sasha did, a very significant block in the defense with his side pressure.
Zurab, it's interesting. How effective is Zurab's block wrist in versus flat wrist or wrist back versus someone like Rob?
Well, we see Zurab picking up like 120, 150 kilo dumbbells and just doing this little range here. So he purpose designs his training to be ready for that. I think he's comfortable wrist back. I think he is. I think we saw him wrist back against Ron, and Ron was not able to.
But wrist in, is he just as comfortable?
So you think Rob should go wrist in? once he's separated him to that outside position, then come in and then try to just actually close down a shoulder roll with almost a high hooky sort of press.
Not so much press, but come forward and have that depth and really control pronation. Because you can't. It's really hard to control someone's rotation when their wrist is back and they've got that back pressure engaged through the strap.
Mm-hmm.
So the avenue to Zurab's biceps surely is trying to turn off his pronation. And Rob's got a big hand.
Well, yeah, I think you do have to turn him palm up. If his thumb is up, then Zurab's not being pinned.
No,
I don't think anyone's flop pressing him. I don't think anyone's top rolling him from there. I think you have to turn him there. So I agree with you on part, but still the question, how on earth does Rob finish the match? What is the moment? How does he get him to the pad?
Get him to the pad. Okay.
Because I struggle to see it.
It's hard. Zurab's a hard man to pin. Either what we saw with John, which was just take full control of rotation out of straps.
And then press.
And, yeah.
Press outside of his wrist.
Press outside the wrist is another one, yeah.
Okay. So when I go back, flip the coin the other way, I can see a lot of ways that Zurab can pin. I think that Rob, like it's weird for me because Rob, I would love to have the tool set that Rob has. It's a very very good tool set, let's be honest. His hand is massive, his bicep is massive. What more do you need? Like he's
perfectly built for arm wrestling.
Yeah.
You see it from the start. Yeah.
And he does have an ability to press as well. I'm certain of it. I think his inability to have an open arm defense may be a big problem for him. Because I think that Zurab will be the first to attack. He'll go sideways first. And he'll compromise his wrist doing it. He's fine with that. And if Rob tries to defend it while staying in a tight, closed position, I think Zurab will get through and he'll...
Yeah, if I'm Rob, I'm not wanting Zurab to go first. I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a bit of a question for you. We're saying Rob shows up, you know. What version of Rob do you think shows up in terms of mindset?
Yeah, that's a big factor, isn't it?
That's a massive factor.
Because Rob historically is someone who we've seen him ultra fired up against, I think of people like Todd Hutchins. I think all of his WAL performances were his best mental performances. His arm wars against Sasha, he looked like a quiet little mouse. And I think, self-admitted, he is somebody who struggles with the mental pressure. This is an environment where there's going to be a lot of mental pressure, isn't it? Like he's hearing us say, will he even turn up? Sorry, Rob, but we're just going off the stats. He's got that pressure. He's traveling all the way to Turkey, and he's the underdog. He's about a 70-30 underdog, I believe.
Yeah, but does being the underdog, right, does that relieve some of the pressure for him? He's got something to prove. He hasn't got a lot to lose. Because if he loses to Zurab, people aren't going to be shocked. It's not a big hit to his current standing, right? He's been relatively inactive. So he's got a lot to gain and not much to lose.
That's true.
And he's got something to prove. He's really got to say, I'm back in this. So do we get the fired up Rob? Because I love seeing a fired up Rob.
If it is the fired up Rob, it is a different story.
That's a terrifying Rob.
Because the fired up Rob has beaten Marcio Barboza. The fired up Rob has beaten Todd Hutchins. The fired up Rob has... What are his other big wins? He's looked good against Michael Todd.
He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
And the thing about the fired up Rob, he takes center. All of a sudden, he's not as much from the count.
If he can take center from the setup, he's in a great position to control the thumb. Zurab is really underneath and not a good place. So that you could pretty much... I think you can probably pretty much tell who's going to win the match based on that alone.
The first ready go.
Who has the center in round one? Who has center in round one? And for Rob, the center needs to be almost this direction, coming forward and pronating, because it's just all about that thumb control of Zurab. If he controls the thumb of Zurab and starts the match with Zurab feeling like he's ready to collapse.
Yeah, and difference between Zurab and Sasha. I don't think he has to be as scared of Zurab's wrist.
Well, Zurab's wrist, it's almost probably a negative for Zurab that he's almost too comfortable giving it away. He'll acknowledge, oh, it's a bit of a risk to try to keep it, so just going to bail and drive sideways. So yeah, where Sasho
fights for it. Even when it's back, Sasha is still fighting for his wrist, and as soon as there's a gap, it's coming back in, and then with such a short forearm, he gets his wrist and gets hand control back. It's actually quite amazing to watch.
Okay, so what about just the endurance factor? Generally speaking, let's assume that both of these guys are unable to force a pin.
It's Zurab's world.
Zurab's world?
Zurab's world, surely.
For someone like Rob, you have to be like normally the guy with the longer arm, bigger hand wins the endurance battle. Like you should be in control. But Zurab has developed such a sticking point that he will sit there for a very long time happily. Again, case in point against Ron Barth.
You know, smart adjustments though would mean that Rob has the capacity, and we were talking about that longer arm, bigger hand. You can be so much more efficient. So there's no question, I think, in most people's minds, Zurab's got more endurance. Zurab has got more endurance, but Rob could be more efficient if he plays it intelligently.
Who is the better arm wrestler? Who do you expect to make less errors in this match?
Zurab. And I'm just, in executing his style specifically, he's been so active and he's been very effective in most of his matches. And every match we've seen, he's adjusted from his mistakes. So I think we're going to see a sharper Zurab.
I've never gripped Rob, but I will say of Zurab... I've tried. I've tried to set it up. I tell you, I've tried, but not yet. Anyway, someday I'm sure. But Zurab's setup awareness of him knowing what I was looking for.
Oh, you looked horrible.
He was very good at getting it. Very good, yeah. As you said, it looked horrible.
Yeah, I was watching that match. It's live back here in Australia on my couch, and you know that first go happens out of straps, and I basically got off my chair. I was like, yes,
because
Ryan's in it, and then I saw the setup happening for the strap. I'm like, oh, Ryan's lost the match.
What did you see? And then I'll talk about what I experienced in that setup.
I just saw him getting the position where he wanted, getting the depth, keeping his knuckle height, and forcing you to come down. And essentially, he was able to get onto your pronation and collapse that pronation, get the pronation so deep in his hand that it didn't really matter what you did with it.
Yeah. So I agree with that. He was very good at controlling the height of the webbing. As the shorter arm guy, he was very, very solid. He was very solid in center through the base of his palm. So you couldn't really push him off center there. And so it forced you to really try to run. And then straight away, the referees were like, you got to come to center. And it didn't matter if you said, let's move together. He was so rigid and solid because he was actually in center. And it was very awkward to be like, to try to maneuver his position.
Yeah, and he was just sitting there. It made you look like the villain because you were trying to adjust and get out.
Yeah.
And he just had control of the refs, control of the setup. But there's something Rob might have that you don't.
Rob trusts his wrist flexion way more than I trust mine. I'm all pronation back pressure.
And
I have a king's move.
You've seen his biceps, right?
Yeah, you've seen my biceps though, Ethan, haven't you?
Exactly. I have seen your biceps. So...
Hang on, give us a flex. Come on, Mr. Guns.
I've also seen... Actually, I haven't seen mine yet. That's the problem.
That's funny. Yeah, okay, so what does that mean? That Rob has biceps and he trusts them. What does it mean?
It means the back pressure. And so there's a lot to be won in this setup if you have dominant back pressure.
Does Rob have good back pressure in relation to pronation? Because I see back pressure, but I see his pronation just dropping.
It depends which Rob shows up.
Yeah, if Rob grips deep and tries to load up, does he keep the game on the outside, or does he get turned into a hook?
See, I think there's the potential where he can actually have his thumb high. He trusts his wrist flexion. And I see an avenue where he lets his rise down slightly and gets the thumb high and can keep it in the setup because he has enough static back pressure. You weren't able to. It's the same thing with you and Ray. Where
Let's
a limiting factor was...
Let's not talk about
that one. You know what? I'm happy to do. These tend to go for 20, 30 minutes. I'm happy to do 20, 30 minutes talking about your match, Brad.
We're never going to talk about that.
Hour
ever
podcast.
Again.
Come on, guys. If you want an hour podcast,
I'll show
Ryan
you.
v. Ray.
I'll show you how bad I am. That's my quote from that. Anyway, sorry. Back to you.
Yeah, back pressure. Rob. Back pressure is one of the major things in terms of being able to win setup and dictate a setup. And can Rob keep enough static back pressure without gassing out to actually have that pronation threat and stop Zurab from dictating that setup?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. As much as I respect Rob's bicep, I think he has a disconnect. His pronation doesn't lock down with his bicep.
Yeah.
I see his wrist flexion as his second best asset, not his pronation. I think his pronation is secondary. His back pressure, he'll drop his wrist and catch and then be in a terrible position. He does not want to be there at all.
Yeah, I get you. I see that. So the question is, can he maintain pronation threat in the setup?
Because if he doesn't, he loses.
Oh, he can't win this.
So he
match
has to
without
run. He has to run in the setup.
But he's got a big hand and a lot of wrist flexion, so I wouldn't be too scared about running in the setup. I don't think he loses too much control if he does.
Zurab comes to the front of the pad after the go. Don't move, ready, go. He comes right forward, leans at you. Rob gets stuck on the back. Rob can't then employ any drag.
Yeah.
So the wrist flexion is, in terms of an offensive capability. It's there for defense, but he can't offensively use wrist flexion anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't want to play defense. I'm not sure he can, because of that pronation, I'm not sure he can pull off what John did.
What John did.
Yeah, I know, that was a sentence.
I can see Rob being able to defend. If Rob just said, okay, come straight at me and just kind of somewhat tried to keep his pronation up, but just went heavy on the bicep and just wrist flexion, I can see Zurab punching through, getting the pronation down, but then hitting a wall. Because Zurab, remember being at the very front of the pad, it's hard to get that final dividend down pressure. So if Rob over here, I think he can stop there. But I'm not sure he has the path to walk back from there to victory.
Yeah, can he win from there? So that's where I don't want to see him playing defense.
If Zurab goes for that, Zurab's doing these ones, can't get through. Okay, Zurab then starts to breathe, starts to rest, starts to think, okay, I need to recuperate and change the lane. When he backs off to now passive pressure and goes almost to center, what does Rob do from there? If he was here, does he come back like this? Does he come back like that?
If I'm Zurab, though, I'm not backing off pressure.
Now stay on active,
stay on active,
red line.
Just a bit back from not red line, but 80, 85% on my elbow, just lean. And we know he'll add the jolts in.
Todd Hutchins style, just stay down there no matter what.
Stay there. And, we'll see him add those lat drags, which helps get some of the blood out of the elbow and helps disengage the pronator with that small jolts. But, yeah, that constant lean, I don't think I ever give up position from there. That's...
I don't know that he has that. I feel like I respect Rob's bicep enough that I don't think Zurab could get through in that situation if Rob just went like this and just curled up.
You don't think he could outlast? You don't think leaning on that elbow versus Rob holding with the bicep?
I do think Rob's bicep is enough there.
Okay.
Which would be interesting, but that's one of the less likely scenarios because I don't think Rob's going to play all that defense like that.
Yeah.
That would be round 3 for Rob after 2 offensive rounds have failed.
Yep.
We might see that. And I hope that he does if the first 2 have failed. But it feels to me like this whole match, there are pathways for Rob to victory, but they're very narrow and they're easy to fall off.
Yep.
Where Zurab, I feel like Zurab could fall off and then get back on. He could go, oh, that's not going to work. Whoops. Oh, get back over here again. Hang on. Get control again. Okay. All right. Build it back again. I don't think Rob has the ability to build it back again.
I think Zurab has the permission to make mistakes. I think maybe that's what we're saying.
Yes.
Zurab can make mistakes and still win. Whereas in Rob, if he makes mistakes, potentially loses the entire match. If he makes a mistake and doesn't concede, he may just lose the entire match.
Okay. So what about the mental pressure on Zurab? We talked about it before. That there's a lot riding on it for Rob, but he has the gift of being the underdog, as you said, in this respect. which may help him. I mean, he's got. I think he's got his buddies in the room. He's got Devon. He's got Paul. He's got a bunch of Americans. He's got Dave. He's got a bunch of his teammates. So he should feel at home.
Yeah, and even like let's be honest, neither of us would mind seeing Rob win. Both of us would. The version of Rob that has to show up, we'd both enjoy that. Yeah. So he's got a lot of support behind him. We genuinely want to see this be a cracker of a match.
Pressure on Zurab. How much is there?
I think Rob's got enough of a legacy behind him and enough mega matches behind him that I don't see the same level of pressure on Zurab either.
I agree with you on that. Even though Rob has been dormant, you know how good he can be.
Yeah.
So when you go on into a match with him, you're like, oh, if any one of those old versions does show up, you're like, oh shit.
This is one of the best of all time at his weight. Like,
he's a real legit dude.
Yeah, it's kind of like, does anyone mind losing to John? Is it such a bad thing? Like, if Irakli had lost his match to John, he would have held his head high. It's maybe not that same level because that's John. But
there's a degree of that with Rob as well. So Zurab, knowing that in the back of his mind, and also knowing that he's a 70-30 favourite, would be feeling the pressure in this situation.
But it's weird because he's a favourite, but I feel like he still has permission to swing for the fence. He still has permission to you know.
Because, if Zurab loses and it's the T-shirt tearing Rob, then we're all like, it's okay. That doesn't seem like a bad loss to Zurab all of a sudden.
But if the quiet mouse shows up and pulls off a win, that's a very embarrassing loss.
Oh well, yeah. If Rob wins in the timid version,
like, you don't want to lose to timid Rob.
Yeah, we don't see Incredible Hulk Rob. Then Zurab would feel bad. But look, Zurab's better than that. I don't think the timid version could. I don't think anyone at Zurab's weight in the world can win with a timid version. Zurab's he's that good.
And that's our biggest fear, isn't it, with this match? Is that we get timid Rob.
If timid Rob wipes Zurab, I look terrible. I mean, I look terrible most of the time in the wrestling size. But I'm hoping. Look for my prospects. I hope Zurab is the one that yawns. Just
we get fired up.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Rob's better than that. But let's make no mistake. I'm rooting for Zurab here.
Yeah. And look, I love Zurab. I'm kind of rooting for. I think the dudes are great, and just the comments after the matches and seeing just how much of a gentleman he can be and he is. It's just like
he was a very nice guy. I really did have a lot of time for Zurab.
No matter what I say about Ryan, I'm also rooting for Zurab. But Zurab to be the fight up version of Rob. I just want to see a war. I want to see a war.
That's what we all want at the end of the day. Yeah. I think. So what's your ultimate prediction on this? Where does it go score wise?
I'm thinking 3-1. 3-1 Zurab.
Which round is Rob winning?
Either the first or the second.
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking second round. Rob might pull off a win second round. So you have Zurab, Rob, and then Zurab comes back.
Those last couple of rounds, I'm curious what are they like?
I feel like okay. So let's say round 1 goes to strap. Zurab gets a stop on Rob and straps and works her way back. Rob feels his mistake. Round 2, out of straps, gets a pin. And round 3, Zurab figures out how to get around that setup, slips, and then back in straps and then wins the next
The old out of strap is definitely Rob's biggest lane, isn't it? Because his hand and bicep can control people. We saw him do that against Sasha.
Oh, absolutely. And if we see the fight up version of Rob, who is brave, comes forward, because out of straps, in or hook, the old version of Rob would have enough rotation. I think he finishes that match in a hook offensively. I think he's got enough.
I don't know.
He's done some incredible things in there. Where you fully down and then you add that back pressure pronation right at the base once you've got the pronation. Mm-hmm. I think he's got that lane. But the most likely scenario I'm seeing is 3-1 Zurab.
Okay. All right. And my prediction, I think I'm going to give Rob some fuel, some motivation. I think Zurab's going to wipe him 3-0 and he's going to giggle. at some point in the match, we'll see a Zurab giggle.
Oh, man.
I think he's going to wipe him.
You better hope now. Goodness.
No, but the version of wipe will be, it'll go to straps. Zurab has an ability to flop slip, which is something, and he trusts his center. So even if Rob's crowding him like he can, I still think he's short enough and powerful enough that he'll get the
If
flop
he decides to, though, you see Zurab sometimes go for holding on when you just think, no, Zurab, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Zurab shouldn't try to hold on out of straps.
But he might. He did with John.
Yeah.
And he's done with other, he's gotten sneaky.
He shouldn't.
He just shouldn't.
It's a really bad idea. But if he doesn't do that, I see slip, comfortable slip, underhand slip, goes to straps, and first round just pins him. Just maybe 2 surges at most. But Rob tries to stay tight, bang, pin. Rob looks all sheepish, unfortunately. Round 2, it's the same but worse. Zurab even just holds center and pins.
Are you having flashbacks? Are you just saying Rob's going to do what
Zurab's going to do to Rob what he did to me?
And then third round, Rob's going to hit a desperate Kings and get pinned through it.
So he doesn't have a Kings. He didn't have a Kings. So
Neither did you?
No, I have a Kings. You're getting cheeky now. Cheeky on my podcast, he comes on and starts throwing insults. I don't know. But I don't think Rob has a Kings. I think he has only a bicep in a hand, and therefore, once he's broken down, it's over. Sorry, Rob. Hopefully that motivates the hell out of you, and I'm completely wrong.
I want to see it fired up, Rob, though.
Fired up Rob would be very
fired up Rob.
Fired
I
up
want
Rob
to see
would be
it.
great.
That'd be fire. That'd be amazing.
It would be.
And then that's a really cool match.
All right, guys, let us know what your thoughts are. Big match coming up. East vs West Sevens only. I'm not going to say how far away it is because then it ruins the timestamp of this video. Someone watching it the day before doesn't want to hear it's 7 days to go or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's coming up. Anyway, let us know.